ready for a genuinely uncomfortable question. What if the freedom you believe you possess is an illusion? Imagine waking up to find that the masses around you have simply stopped asking questions. We live in an age of information overload. It's fast, loud, and relentless. But has this saturation led to enlightenment, or has our powerful mind become numb, settling for effortless, passive acceptance? Consider the danger. What becomes of a society when critical thinking, the ability to reason, challenge, and reflect, is replaced by impulsive reactions and collective echo chambers? In this segment, we investigate the troubling vanishing act of critical thought and the rise of what some philosophers call collective stupidity. This isn't about intelligence. It's about the masses systematically embracing shallow narratives and sacrificing their intellectual sovereignty without realizing it. We promise a journey that culminates in a powerful, urgent revelation, a truth that could define whether we reclaim our consciousness or yield it to a system engineered to keep us placid and distracted. But first, ask yourself, are you prepared to have your most deeply held certainties challenged? Let's initiate the core discussion with an inconvenient truth. Genuine, thoughtful thinking is difficult work, and in our hyper-modern landscape, it's actively discouraged. Our environment doesn't reward careful contemplation. It demands immediate speed, emotional volatility, and conformity. And this is not accidental. The machinery is set up perfectly, from algorithms that craft mental comfort zones to educational systems that prioritize rote memorization. Society is steering us away from critical engagement. The philosopher Noam Chomsky warned that power structures rely on the manufacturing of consent. When people consume without questioning, they become easy to manage and deceive. Critical thinking is now often seen as inconvenient. It slows down debates, challenges ideologies, and dares to ask, but is this really true? The late philosopher Noam Chomsky meticulously detailed decades ago how power structures maintain control, specifically through the manufacturing of consent. He explained that when populations are systematically trained to simply consume data without challenging it, to assent without genuine comprehension, they effortlessly transform into easily managed, and therefore easily manipulated, subjects that think about it. Critical thinking, once held as a fundamental human requirement, is now often dismissed as inconvenient. It interrupts the fury of outrage culture, impedes the rapid-fire nature of online discourse, and fundamentally questions entrenched ideologies. It possesses the audacity to simply ask, is this information actually factual? In a world obsessed with certainty and being demonstrably right, merely posing that investigative question is frequently perceived as an act of subversion. How exactly did we arrive at this point of intellectual fragility? The root of this massive issue runs deep, and a primary propellant is the sheer, overwhelming information overload we navigate every minute of every day. Neuroscientific research confirms that the average person is now processing nearly 5 times the daily data volume compared to just a few generations ago. We are ceaselessly bombarded with notifications, news flashes, emotional opinions, advertisements, and constant updates. Our minds were never designed to handle this unrelenting input. When the brain is pushed to its absolute limit, it resorts to severe shortcuts. It defaults to ingrained mental habits, easily manipulated cognitive biases, and relying on groupthink to simplify complexity. Instead of engaging in the slow, effortful process of critically evaluating ideas, the mind reflexively searches for signals from the crowd, from peers, online influencers, or figures perceived as authority. This psychological default is known as social proof. While it's a natural mechanism for survival, it is terrifyingly easy to weaponize. Consider how often you might instinctively trust an online post simply because it carries thousands of likes or comments, assuming its truth or importance. That decision is not logic. It's a psychological shortcut. And it's why collective stupidity spreads so effortlessly, not because people lack intelligence, but because they are being relentlessly trained to follow convenient signals rather than painstaking reason. The psychological mechanism of social proof, though innate, is a dangerous lever for manipulation. It encourages us to surrender our own critical evaluation in favor of the group's perceived consensus. Think critically about this. How frequently have you tacitly accepted an opinion because it was endorsed by a large online following, mistakenly equating popularity with validity? This reliance on signals over independent reason is a primary pathway through which collective intellectual decline takes hold. Compounding this issue is the alarming, documented decline in sustained reading, particularly deep reading. Neuroscientists such as Marianne Wolf confirm that continuous engagement with digital media is fundamentally rewiring our brains. We have become experts at skimming, multitasking, and rapidly switching focus, making it increasingly difficult to sustain attention on anything complex or lengthy. The crucial link here is that critical analysis, reflection, and true comprehension demand focused, sustained attention. Analysis cannot happen when attention is constantly fractured. When was the last time you truly paused after encountering a provocative idea, not to instantly react or formulate a counter-argument, but to genuinely reflect and process? These foundational, quiet habits are rapidly disappearing from our mental landscape. The late, great astronomer and thinker Carl Sagan issued a stern warning that resonates deeply today. He cautioned that we inhabit a world utterly reliant on advanced science and technology, yet are increasingly populated by citizens who possess little actual knowledge about these underlying systems. His profound concern went beyond mere ignorance. It was the active erosion of our capability to think critically about the complex systems that dictate our modern existence. In a global arena drowning in fleeting opinions, aggressive hot takes, and pervasive ideological conflict, the most radical act of rebellion remaining is the quiet, conscious choice to think clearly. Yet, the forces arrayed against clear thought are not just technological or educational. They are deeply emotional. Critical thinking forces us to confront our own ignorance and biases, challenging the ego and inducing cognitive dissonance, that painful clash between cherished beliefs and new evidence. In a culture that worships certainty, many choose the path of least resistance, defense, tribal retreat, and the memorization of simple slogans instead of engaging in the complex, honest Socratic dialogue that has fueled human progress for centuries. If this discussion on cognitive warfare has illuminated even one new perspective for you, please take a moment right now. Hit the like button and leave your most pressing doubt in the comments below. Your honest questions are the foundation of true dialogue, and by sharing them, you help us all push back against this intellectual fatigue. Now, the crisis facing critical thinking is intensely emotional. True thinking is inherently uncomfortable because it demands a profound level of intellectual humility. It forces us to admit to ourselves that we do not possess all the answers, directly challenging our ego and leading us into the uncomfortable space of cognitive dissonance. This occurs when our strongly held, cherished beliefs collide violently with undeniable, new evidence. In a culture that places absolute value on confidence, certainty, and identity, this vulnerability is perceived as a profound threat. As a result, rather than engaging in the difficult work of thinking, we retreat. We dedicate energy to defending our positions, insulating ourselves within our intellectual tribes, repeating familiar mantras, and avoiding any conversation that might challenge our comfort zone. We prioritize memorizing easy slogans over participating in true, complex dialectic, the kind of honest, challenging conversation that has historically powered philosophical evolution for thousands of years. What we are witnessing is far more than a simple decline in mental aptitude. It is a full-scale societal pivot toward intellectual passivity and mental laziness. The consequences of this choice are profound and devastating. When citizens collectively cease to think for themselves, they simultaneously stop questioning the narratives presented to them. This makes them instantly vulnerable to manipulation, propaganda, mass fear, and control. This compels us to ask this central, critical question: who ultimately benefits when a massive population willingly surrenders its ability to think independently? Stay engaged, because the next layers of this discussion will expose precisely how deeply these controlling forces are interwoven into our day-to-day existence, and why reclaiming your personal capacity to think clearly is not just a self-improvement goal, but an urgent moral obligation. To truly excavate the roots of this pervasive collective decline, we must look beyond the immediate digital noise and trace the evolution of foundational systems, specifically how they have been organized not to nurture intellectual independence, but to systematically suppress it. To fully grasp the genesis of this pervasive intellectual decline, we must scrutinize a key systemic structure: the traditional education system. John Taylor Gatto, an acclaimed former teacher and vocal critic of standardized schooling, argued forcefully that the modern educational framework was fundamentally not designed to cultivate independent thinkers. In his blunt assessment, Gatto claimed that schools essentially teach nothing of substance beyond how to obey orders. He posited that mandatory schooling, having been formalized during the industrial age, aimed not to genuinely enlighten children, but to prepare them for the predictable, obedient, and non-disruptive structure of factory work. Think about the sheer implications of this claim. Instead of guiding children on how to construct thought, the system heavily emphasizes what to think. From an extremely early age, students are evaluated and rewarded, not for the originality or intellectual depth of their ideas, but for their proficiency in memorization and regurgitation. Conformity is actively reinforced. Genuine curiosity is frequently treated as a troublesome distraction. Over time, this relentless message becomes crystal clear. Adhere to the rules, stay within the accepted parameters, and most importantly, limit your challenging questions. This pattern of conditioning doesn't abruptly halt upon graduation. It intensifies and evolves into adult life, in our professional workplaces, in the media we consume, and even within our social circles. We quickly absorb the unspoken rule that speaking out, openly questioning the consensus, or holding genuinely unpopular views can carry a significant social and professional cost. The fear of being branded difficult, controversial, or facing social exclusion is often a sufficient deterrent to silence our most pressing and legitimate doubts. And so we choose silence. But over an extended period, that individual silence morphs into collective complicity. The influential psychologist Erich Fromm explored this surrender in his seminal work, Escape from Freedom. He observed that many individuals harbor a secret desire to relinquish their intellectual freedom, largely because genuine freedom is inextricably linked to responsibility, and that responsibility can be profoundly terrifying. Thinking independently means you are no longer entitled to blame external forces for your ignorance. You cannot find refuge in the comfort of the collective. Instead, you must courageously face the unsettling uncertainty inherent in the pursuit of truth. For many, this is simply too heavy a burden. Consequently, we frequently choose immediate comfort, effortless distraction, and forced simplicity over grappling with complexity. In making this fundamental choice, we inadvertently become far easier targets for control and manipulation. Social media platforms have catastrophically accelerated this psychological problem to an unimaginable scale. What began as a tool for global connection has swiftly devolved into a perpetual battleground of opinion wars, endless outrage cycles, and precise algorithmic manipulation. Every single digital environment is specifically engineered to keep you engaged, scrolling, reacting, and consuming, not pausing to think. You are constantly nudged toward content that powerfully affirms your existing beliefs. The structure encourages instant, emotional, and frequently aggressive responses. These platforms thrive on division and reward engagement, often prioritizing virality over factual truth. In the middle of this overwhelming noise, the subtle voice of reason is completely obliterated. Thoughtfulness appears agonizingly slow, weak, even irrelevant. Why invest in deep reflection when a quick, angry reaction is faster and guarantees more digital affirmation? Philosopher Marshall McLuhan anticipated this transformation back in the 1960s. He famously warned that the medium is the message, underscoring that the way we receive information fundamentally alters how we think. Today's primary mediums relentlessly promote speed over depth, outrage over necessary nuance, and unwavering certainty over intellectual humility. In this hyper-digital age of misinformation, truth itself has become radically distorted. What is genuinely factual is often deemed less important than what is merely viral. People are increasingly evaluating the merit of an idea not on evidence or logic, but solely on the number of people who endorse it. This is the tyranny of the majority in its most potent and cognitively dangerous form. If the ideas in this segment have made you look at your phone or your feeds differently, stop scrolling right now. Share this video with 2 people you know who still value asking the hard questions. Let's build a quiet network of independent minds. Given this environment, where do we begin to reverse this decline? The powerful initial step is to start formulating better, more penetrating questions that actively challenge the established consensus and demand robust, genuine answers, not merely simplistic slogans or context-deprived statistics. We must compel ourselves to ask, what are we currently being urged to believe? Who benefits financially, politically, or socially from this specific belief taking root? What deep-seated, unchallenged assumptions form the base of my certainty? And how frequently do I deliberately seek out genuinely opposing viewpoints, not with the intent to instantly refute them, but with the sincere goal of achieving comprehension? These are not easy, comfortable questions, but they are critically necessary. This is because the potent antidote to this escalating collective intellectual fatigue is not simply high intelligence, it is courage. It is the courage required to be potentially wrong, the courage to commit to perpetual learning, and the profound courage to admit, I do not know, and yet choose to commence the journey of knowing nonetheless. Socrates, arguably the earliest and greatest champion of critical thinking, famously asserted, "The only true wisdom is in knowing ye know nothing." This statement was not an act of self-deprecation. It was a profound invitation. It was an invitation to remain perpetually curious, to relentlessly continue asking, and to maintain intellectual humility when confronted by the vast, mysterious complexity of the world. Yet, in our modern culture, true humility is increasingly rare. Unwavering certainty is glorified, and raw arrogance is frequently mistaken for wisdom. Everyone seems to possess a strong opinion, but true, deep understanding is scarce. Everyone is eager to speak, but few are willing to truly listen. The profound irony is that genuine deep thinkers are often observed as quiet, meticulous, and reserved. They inherently grasp that true wisdom is cultivated not in the deafening noise of the crowd, but in silence, in careful contemplation, and in the sustained, deep engagement with complexity. To genuinely comprehend the accelerated rise of collective stupidity, we must shift focus and examine the fundamental battlefield that exists within the human mind itself. Despite our cultural reliance on pure logic, the psychological truth is that the human brain operates far more on emotion and instinct than on cold rationality. We instinctively prefer to believe our decisions are evidence-based, but the reality is significantly more complex. As demonstrated by Nobel Prize-winning psychologist Daniel Kahneman in his seminal work, Thinking, Fast and Slow, our brains utilize 2 core systems for processing information. System 1 is immediate, fast, emotional, and instinctive. It leaps to conclusions, employs snap judgments, and is designed for energy conservation. System 2 is the slow, deliberate, cautious, and intensely analytical process, but it requires significant effort. Herein lies the core issue. In our perpetually high-speed, always connected world, the majority of people are overwhelmingly stuck in System 1, fast mode. There is simply no available time, or often no mental will, to slow down and commit to deep, laborious thinking. Consequently, we heavily rely on mental shortcuts, heuristics, and generalized stereotypes that feel correct but are frequently flawed. This mental landscape is exceptionally fertile ground for large-scale manipulation. Politicians, professional marketers, and media outlets are all highly skilled at exploiting these mental shortcuts. They expertly condense highly complex issues into deceptive, simple binaries, employ emotionally charged language to bypass deliberate reason, and constantly prime us with repeated narratives until we accept them as immutable truth. This acceptance is not based on verification, but purely because the narratives have become comfortably familiar. The immediate danger is that once we mentally accept a concept as true, our brains instinctively begin to dedicate energy to defending that specific belief, irrespective of any contradictory evidence. This is the pervasive trap known as confirmation bias, arguably one of the most powerful cognitive obstacles in existence. Take a moment to reflect. How often do you sincerely seek out evidence that actively contradicts your own beliefs? If you are honest, the answer is likely not often, and recognizing this human trait is the first step toward self-correction. Another foundational psychological concept at play is groupthink, a dangerous phenomenon where the overpowering desire for harmony or total conformity within a group ultimately results in irrational or profoundly flawed decisions. This dynamic has been meticulously documented across history, from catastrophic corporate failures to large-scale historical atrocities. Individuals consciously suppress their internal doubts and legitimate concerns for the sake of preserving superficial unity, systematically choosing consensus over genuine truth. Social psychologist Irving Janis, who originated this term, confirmed that even highly intelligent, well-intentioned individuals can execute disastrous decisions when dissent is suppressed and critical evaluation is explicitly avoided. Why does this happen? Because challenging the established group narrative feels inherently unsafe. Going against the established grain demands far more than mere intelligence. It requires intense integrity and moral courage. Yet, history stands as a testament that true progress has invariably originated from individuals who possess the audacity to think differently. Figures like Galileo, Darwin, and Martin Luther King Jr. were initially rejected, ridiculed, or actively attacked for their radical ideas. But they persisted in thinking, they continued to speak, and their unwavering willingness to challenge the collective ignorance of their era fundamentally reshaped the world we inhabit. Make no mistake, there is a high cost associated with critical thought in a society that actively punishes doubt. It is an act of rebellion. You risk misunderstanding, social ostracization, and potentially even hatred. But in return, you gain something immeasurably valuable: clarity, profound self-respect, and the quiet, solid power that stems from knowing that your core beliefs are truly your own, not merely programmed or borrowed. This brings us to a profound personal loss: the habit of inner dialogue. We feel lost, anxious, and unfulfilled precisely because we've outsourced our essential thinking to machines, to mass media, and to volatile public opinion. No algorithm can dictate what is true for you. No trending topic can adequately replace the certainty of your inner voice. If you feel this loss of connection to your own true thoughts, take action now. Engage in this dialogue. Share one belief you recently had the courage to question, and why, in the comments below. Let your act of intellectual honesty inspire the quiet revolution we all need. At the heart of this global crisis, beneath the endless digital noise, the institutional failures, and the cultural polarization, lies the most profound reason for the disappearance of critical thinking. It is not that people are fundamentally incapable of it. It is that they are terrified of what genuine thought might reveal. To think critically is to risk everything that provides psychological comfort, our identity, our cherished beliefs, and the safety of our intellectual tribe. For many, these elements are far too precious to subject to honest, probing inquiry. We inhabit a time where identity has been elevated to a sacred status. People define their very selves by their political affiliations, their ideologies, and their opinions. Consequently, challenging an idea is immediately perceived as a profound personal attack. This is the very illusion that decimates thought, the false premise that we are our ideas. You are not your party, your religion, or your social group. You are a human being with an innate capacity for growth, evolution, and change. That journey of evolution begins the instant you detach your self-worth from your current, temporary beliefs. The final, most urgent truth is this: critical thinking is not merely an intellectual aptitude. It is fundamentally a spiritual act. It is the conscious choice to honor truth over superficial comfort, to prioritize intellectual growth over paralyzing certainty, and to choose profound mental freedom over the easy approval of the crowd. It is the quiet, solitary decision to live with your eyes wide open, even when the painful light of reality stings. Once you initiate critical thought, you immediately begin to perceive the surrounding structures, the manipulation systems, the control algorithms, the social masks. And while this can be overwhelming or even painful, it is fundamentally real. And reality, regardless of its discomfort, is the only solid foundation upon which authentic freedom can ever be constructed. As the philosopher Carl Jung observed, people will go to absurd lengths to avoid confronting their own souls. Yet, facing that inner world, our unconscious drives, inherited biases, and cognitive traps, is the very essence of critical inquiry. It is about questioning yourself. Why do I hold this belief? Where did this core idea truly originate? Which part of me is paralyzed by the fear of letting go of it? When you ask these questions honestly, a new reality opens, a world not just of knowledge, but of deep wisdom. And wisdom is precisely what our society is starving for. In a culture addicted to instant answers, wisdom demands deeper questions. In a system built on perpetual noise, wisdom offers necessary silence. This is your profound invitation to stop existing as a mere product of your environment and consciously become the architect of your own mind. The responsibility for this transformation is yours alone. And when you embrace it, you become the quiet light the world desperately needs, a voice of calm in a storm of outrage, a grounded thinker in a sea of reactionaries. The most revolutionary thing you can do now is not to conform, not to repeat slogans, but simply to think. Keep seeking clarity, stay awake, and above all, keep thinking. If you have followed the argument to this point, perhaps you feel differently about today's way of life. The question now is not whether it is collapsing, it is. The question is, how will you respond to it? What inner struggle are you facing to stay sane amid so much noise? Share it in the comments. And if this reflection helped you, pass it on to someone who may be losing their mind too. And don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. We still have a lot to explore together. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.